life's great adventure. And life's great adventure is self-discovery, exploring the self. And the suggested affirmation I have for you is, I have absolutely nothing better to do with my life than become who I was born to be. I have absolutely nothing better to do with my life than to discover who I was born to be. So I want to share with you some of the personal retreat that I had over the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I think I have mentioned before that my God, my spirit, my divine essence, the unifying force that I believe in, is such a trickster. What a sense of humor. Really. So here's how the week unfolded for me. I was awakened because the dogs were barking, because they were working on the apartment upstairs, laying new floor. Bang, 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 bark, 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 bang, 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 bark, 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 bang, 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 bark, bark, bark. Oh my goodness, that went on and on and on in the silence. Bang, 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 bark, bark, bark. So then they took a break the next day, and then the maintenance people decided that it was time to trim the hedge. So there was the hedge trimmer sound, bark, 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 and then they took the weed blower thing, you know, and then they blew, and that blew all of the debris into my patio. Bark, 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 bark. So that was a couple of days of silence, and I'm putting that in quotes. And then I had left my telephone on, my personal phone line, to be able to check the time. And I got a phone call at 6:30 in the morning telling me that the renters in my house in Albuquerque, the water heater had gone out. So that whole day was involved with bark, 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 bang, 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 water heater, and how we're gonna get that changed out, and blah, 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 blah. So that's how it went for me. My silence. My silent retreat. But here's what I discovered in spots that I can be in the silence, even though there's a cacophony of confusion and noise going on. And that was a good lesson to learn, that I can choose to be in the silence, or I can choose to be distracted by all of the noise and the confusion going on. So that's how it went for me. And a silent retreat is not necessarily silent, but it can be internally silent. Around 400 BC, Socrates said, "An unexamined life is a life not worth living." So this whole concept of self-examination and learning our values is not new. It's been going on for a long time. The reason that we're talking about this today is that CSL, the national organization, has declared 2017 the year of how to live a value-driven life. So the whole organization, and many of the talks that I'll be sharing with you, are based on determining values. Now, values are very personal, and I do not even presume to tell you what you should value. And CSL as an organization does identify some values that they live by. But we'll talk about that later over the year. in order to live a value-based life, you have to acknowledge and know what your values are. So that's really important, to be clear about what your values are on a personal level, not buying into what the greater community might direct you to believe in. Our spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, has said this about values. A value is an important and lasting belief or ideal that encapsulates what an individual or member of a culture holds to be good and desirable. Individual values influence our behavior and attitude, and therefore serve a basis for expression in all situations. A value exemplifies a person's principles and brings light and action to what the individual holds as being important in life. When one is aware of what their values are and lives truly to their core values, they begin to express their authentic self. Let me say that again without stumbling over it. Authentic self. The problem is that few actually take the time to define their values and therefore have a tendency to operate their lives on the current values of society that they live in. Dr. Holmes, who is the founder of our philosophy, calls this the race mind, the collective consciousness. This lack of awareness creates confusion. It creates lack, fear, and struggle in the mind of the individual, and therefore outpictures in their lives as disease and discomfort. To be authentic in our time, nature is to be productive and fulfilled in the role we are divinely placed here to express. So to be authentic, to be in alignment with our divinity, we need to get clear about what our values are. And when I talk about being in integrity, I am talking about being in alignment with my connection with Spirit. To be in integrity is to be in an alignment with what I value and what Spirit has spoken through me to value. Each one of us has a different value set, a different capacity for expressing our uniqueness. So we were placed here to express those unique qualities and those unique characteristics that we came into the world to express. And they are all different for each one of us, because each one of us is making up the whole. That's who the universe, the God, the essence is expressed as and through. So I wanted to share a story with you about a fellow named Jim McLaren, and his story was written about by Elizabeth Gilbert in an article in the October Oprah magazine. And so Jim McLaren was a Yale student. He was bright and beautiful and had everything going for him. He was athletic and smart and personable, and one of those beings that you knew was on the path to something great, on the path to greatness. And one summer day in New York City, Jim was hit by a bus and lost his leg. And it took him a bit, but he gathered himself and determined that that loss of his leg was not going to influence his life any more than necessary. And so he became an outstanding athlete, even though he had lost a leg. He was a skier and did triathletics. He was a triathlete. Losing your leg is a pretty devastating situation, but he rose above it. And then, when he was on the bicycle aspect of a triathlon, something had happened about the way the traffic had been directed. And a road that was supposed to be shut down was open. And Jim was hit by a van, and his neck was broken. Really? So he became a quadriplegic, was in a wheelchair, unable to move. And he became bitter, angry, and then he managed to sort it out. And he became a motivational speaker and a spirit. So Elizabeth Gilbert had this conversation with him that I'm just going to read to you because it's so powerful, I think. She writes, "When I face a catastrophe of my own, I remember Jim McLaren. After he broke his neck, he fell into depressed and drug addiction. But a spirit in this man kept reaching for the light, a spirit of divine curiosity, which pushed him to ask, who am I now after I've lost everything? By the time I met Jim," she writes, "he answered that question. Peaceful in his wheelchair, he radiated certainty that his entire purpose, indeed his entire identity, was to live in a state of unconditional love. I asked him whether he thought his suffering had transformed him into a better person. Absolutely, he said. I asked whether suffering always transformed people into a better version of themselves. Not necessarily, he said. Jim explained to me that suffering is one of the most powerful energy forces of the universe, but only if you use it as an instrument for change. People must be willing to journey all the way to the bottom of their pain and experience full catharsis, to completely break apart so they can then rebuild themselves anew. As Jim said, suffering without catharsis is nothing but wasted pain. He said the world is filled with people who have suffered horribly and crawled away broken. They never reached catharsis. They just got shattered and stay shattered. And then there are the great masters, Gandhi, Mandela, King, who used their suffering as an incredible engine to transform into something better. Jim McLaren taught me never to waste my pain. That he taught me to enter straight into it with divine curiosity instead of running from it. And if you can learn to do that, honestly, my friends, you can do anything. So I'm not suggesting that any of us need to be hit by a bus or a van. We do not need to wait for that kind of catastrophe before we begin to examine ourselves and examine our values. We don't need to be hit by a van to experience the self-evaluation, the great adventure of life. And we can do that at any time. I love the new year. To me, it's the most powerful and the greatest of the holidays ever. I love it because it causes me to take a fresh look to take a moment to evaluate the past and to look at my intentions and judge the direction that I perceive that my life is going in. To be in the silence, no matter what the cacophony is going on around. I love the new year for that reason. And we know that, as Steve said, it's just a construct of humanity. That we always stand at cause. We always have an opportunity to evaluate and to make a decision or a choice at any time. And the power of choice is what drives our lives at any given moment. We stand at choice, and choice is the creative tool of the universe. We always are at choice, and we always get to choose, and we always get to move forward. So once we've defined and clarified our values and the values that resonate with us, one that fits our being and one that we unconditionally uphold, it then becomes incumbent upon us to commit to it as a means and a guide for life. That's when we talk about being in integrity with who we are and in integrity with our values. These values become lanterns that will guide and lead us in a direction that sustains and fulfills our true, authentic, and actualized self. So, taking the time to evaluate our values, taking the time to clarify who and what we choose to be in this world is the cause for the outcome of our lives. And it's never too late to do that because it's an ongoing process. It's like peeling an onion. You take off a layer and there's something more underneath there. Take off a layer, there's something more underneath there. And that self-discovery is also our universal discovery. The more we explore ourselves, the more we analyze what we believe in this world and what we hold valuable in this world connects us to the whole universe. And it is incumbent upon us to fulfill our purpose in this world in a deep, rich way, because the universe cannot be whole, it can't be perfect, and it can't be complete without you. The whole universe would implode without your presence. And you have a choice, of course. You can crawl away in pain, or you can use your life as a work of art and discover yourself, and thus discover the universe and the divine essence that you are. So how do we do that? The first thing to do is to pay attention to your life, because your life reflects your values. The places where things are moving smoothly and where you're feeling joyful are the places that your value shows up and percolates up. And the places of angst and conflict and confusion are the places where you're out of your personal integrity, out of balance with the rest of the world and with the expression that you are. So the first thing to do is to clarify your values just by paying attention to your life. And when you know what is valuable to you, when you know what you're willing to stand for, when you know what you're willing to stand up for, then to those and living from that place, living from the personal integrity, your personal alignment with Spirit, and then finally forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself for the places and the times that you maybe have compromised, that you have not stood up for what you believe to be the truth, what you believe to be valuable. Forgive yourself for all of the missteps, because those missteps, those places that need forgiveness, are also clues to what you value. So living the great adventure of life, self-exploration, is actually living a very deeply rich spiritual life, because you are God made manifest. And what is called to you to do is God calling. And you can ignore it if you choose. That certainly is up to you. But there will be something within that is dissatisfied, that is uncomfortable, that knows that you are not living up to your highest and best values. Robert Bruwald said this: know thyself, or at least keep renewing the acquaintance. It's never too late to become acquainted with yourself, to know who and what you are. Because I remind you once more, you have absolutely nothing better to do with your life than to become who you were born to be. You have nothing, absolutely nothing better to do with your life than to become the person that you were born to be. And we can look around the room, and each one of us is able to identify the quality and the characteristics of others that are with us. We know that each one of us in this room, each one of us in this community, each one of us in this city, in this world, have skills and talents, abilities that are unique. We have values that are our very own, and it requires each one of us to create the whole. So making a commitment to live your best life is also making a commitment to live your best spiritual expression. When you are in personal integrity, in alignment with the divine, you are living God's life. And I celebrate each one of you. You know I love you. Namaste.
Namaste.
That's right. Join with me. I just allow myself to go within. I allow myself to acknowledge and feel the deep, rich connection with that I call Spirit, God, no matter what name you use. It sits quietly within, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to live in the action of love. It whispers to us in the silence, and it whispers to us in the cacophony of life. The answers are always there in the stillness. The truth is always available for the asking. God is good. And what I call my good is my God. My values are my tools for expressing my unique divinity. And I see the divinity in you. I see the God shining through. Each one of us is a puzzle piece in the great jigsaw puzzle of the divine. The picture cannot be complete without you. So in joy, I celebrate the whole. And in joy, I celebrate the parts that make up the whole. I know that while I am God, everything that I am is God. I am not the whole of God. It takes each one of us, all things on this planet and all things in the universe, to make up the whole of the God that I know. But I know I have my part, my place, my work to do. And as that's true for me, I know it's true for all of us. And we are never complete. We are never through with the work. There's always more calling to us. There's always more to be revealed. There's always more to be expressed. There's always more to be explored. And I know that it is good. And it is very good. I know that this year is a very good year. It is the year that each of us become more and more of who we are.